Second question from the audience. In every election, everyone is concerned about the short term, jobs, healthcare, taxes, etc. What ideas do you have to ensure that our young children will have the ability to thrive as we enter an age of automation? We'll start with Kevin and go to Andy, Patricia, Devin, and Randy. Kevin?
Thanks very much. Certainly, the economy is changing, and our way of life, I believe, is changing for the better. So our young people in Nova Scotia deserve the opportunity to make the choice to stay here, and here in our community, here in our region, here in our province. So there's a number of things that the government has recognized in terms of innovative approaches to setting the stage for young people to set roots in Nova Scotia. There's great programs for post-secondary education that are now in place to attach subsidies and incentives to jobs. So not only do we want our young people to get their education here in Nova Scotia, but we also want them to stay here. We've also announced the new incentive for first-time home buyers to attract mortgages to assist with that process, also making it attractive for young people to stay, as well as a tax cut, the first time in Nova Scotia's a couple of decades in Nova Scotia's history that we're able to entertain a tax cut for roughly 500,000 people in Nova Scotia, certainly targeted at the most vulnerable citizens, which perhaps financially could include students who are faced with significant student debt loads coming out, as well as tuition relief programs for young people as well. So the economy is exciting. Things are happening in Nova Scotia. Our seafood exports are nearly doubled. The ocean tech sector is poised to take off. Our agriculture, our wine and microbrewery and spirit industries are going well. And really, the ball is in our court as Nova Scotians to choose to do something that we can control our own destiny. So it's an interesting time to be a young person in Nova Scotia. Thank you.
Thank you. Andy?
Thanks. Long term, the plan is to remove tuition from NSCC, make college courses affordable for anybody who wishes to attend. University tuition reduction for students willing to volunteer in the community. There are plans to invest in renewable energy, agricultural, IT support, entrepreneurial. Personally, I would support financial support for entrepreneurs, young entrepreneurs who are willing to invest in renewable energy, in developing our tourism. I think that's probably going to have the biggest impact on keeping students in Nova Scotia and allowing them to really contribute to their community and lead healthy, productive lives. Thanks.
I know I keep coming back to growing the economy, and I guess for me, looking at business, like development opportunities in Nova Scotia will result in more jobs, which will keep our youth here and keep them with their families. And I think you mentioned, I think, new technologies. That's an area where there's many jobs that haven't even been invented yet or created yet because the technology sector is growing so quickly. So I think that we need to have opportunities for youth to be involved in new innovative ideas that may not be traditional, where in Nova Scotia, we've traditionally looked at mining and fishing and farming, which are all very important industries. I myself come from a dairy and beef farm. So, but I think, you know, the world is changing and we need to look at sustainable new innovations and green technologies, which our youth need to be a part of that conversation. And I know the PC government is trying to make sure that we have a quality education in our schools and more opportunities for our youth to go into trades. And I think technology needs to be a part of that. And that will help us grow our economy and keep our young people here and keep our seniors here and aging in place. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. When it comes to the short-term outlooks on platforms, I would say that our platform is far from that. Our platform is very much long-term in scope. The healthcare investments that are needed today are serious investments, but that doesn't mean that that's where it ends. That means that's where we need to invest to get to where we should be right now, and then we move forward. One of the programs is extending oral health care coverage to children and young adults up to the age of 17. Also, the Environmental Bill of Rights. That's not something that we're planning to implement for 4 years and then get rid of. This is something that is very important to our livelihood here in Nova Scotia. In terms of post-secondary education, that is a long-term investment, but something that is worthy of that investment. And if elected and forming the next government, the tuition fees at all 13 campuses of the Nova Scotia Community College will be eliminated. And that is a cost of $35 million a year. We're not shying away from the facts. This is an investment, and it's a worthy investment. I have multiple friends that have not been able to access post-secondary education just because they can't afford it. That's not fair. That's something that we need to do something about. It also brings into question about university tuition. We would be looking at a starting point of reducing tuition fees for students by 10%. In Nova Scotia, we have the fastest rising and highest tuitions in the country. It's completely unacceptable for a place with so many institutions. Our platform is long-term and is not intended to be short-term.
Finally, Randy.
Thank you. Speaking of student loans, I'm still paying mine off. Actually, it's my daughter. She decided to study opera. There's not a lot of call for opera singers, I can assure you, here in the Eastern Shore. So she's working in town teaching voice, but I guess you do what you want to do and what you like to do. It all depends on what the individual wants. If an individual wants a glamorous lifestyle and a high-paying job, then perhaps they would have to leave the shore. But I can tell you, there are resources out here that we could utilize and that would provide jobs for our people. I mentioned earlier clam diggers. We have an enormous amount, more than you may know out here, that are making $300 and $400 a day every 5-hour low tide. Now granted, it's hard work, and it's only seasonal, but these people are able to maintain and sustain themselves through this. We have young people out here who are working on lobster boats, again, very hard work, but they enjoy it and are able to maintain a lifestyle that suits them. We have rockweed out here that is in great demand in Asian countries that we can harvest along the shorelines. And I've checked into this, and you can lease half the shore out here for $1 or so and rake the rockweed to use as fertilizer or in some cases food. They were doing that in Austria Lake many years ago, but unfortunately the company took the rockweed and the money and left and never paid the boys. But there are a lot of things we could do. We have to be creative. And again, it's what you want. It's what you need. It's the lifestyle that you desire. I tried to talk my son into coming home and going on the whole homestead and working that. He can sustain himself there, but no, the bright lights of the city and the salesman job take precedence. Again, as I say, it depends on what you want and what your lifestyle is and what your determined to do to get it. I could always find a job, no matter where. Of course, in the 60s and 70s, you could get a job anyway, and I know I digress now, but back in those days, you could quit a job today and get a job tomorrow, and the same in 3 and 4 jobs a week if you wanted to. But getting on to maintaining a long-term employment plan, I guess, if you will, here in the shore, we have tons and tons of opportunities. I get into housing, was my forte, and I've built houses, I've rented houses actually, and placed people from the Nova Scotia Hospital into them, in single rooms, not 4 and 5 to a room, and hired people from one end of the shore to the other to work these houses. And they were good people, without training, just common sense people, and these were good paying jobs. I used to laugh when a family would refer someone to me in the governments, and not the MLAs, either the bureaucrats that make these decisions, would say, oh, we don't have a bed. I'd say, you don't have a bed? I can rent a house and have a bed set up within a week that would accommodate anyone that needed care, anyone. And if I couldn't provide the care directly, I could always hire someone that could. Thank you.